Hello everyone. So this is a fun topic for tonight. This topic was actually suggested by my study partner, and we'll have some information at the end for anyone that would like to suggest their own topics. I'm happy to have an open call for suggestions for class topics. So this topic is the Kabbalah of Curious George, and it's the more research I did, first from the email from my friend, and then I did some more research. It's really, there's a lot actually to the life and times of the authors of Curious George. It was a couple by the name of Hans and Margaret Ray. And imagine it's Hans and Margaret Ray. And they grew up in Germany, and then they were escaping World War II. They were in Paris, and on June 11th, 1940, they received word through the radio that the Nazis were going to be invading shortly. So around 2 million people already had fled, and they were seeking for a way to escape. They went to a bike shop, and all that was left was a tandem bike, which is a two-person bike. They tried, and they realized that in order to bike out of the country, they would have to have two bikes. It would just be too difficult to try to bike together. And so that night, they bought bike parts, and as one can imagine, the price of everything was exorbitant, because this is their ticket out. This is their way to get out. So they paid a huge amount of money for spare parts. And that night, Hans built two bikes, and they took a small amount of provisions with them, some food and some clothing, and manuscripts. And we know today what those manuscripts were. Those were these Curious George stories. And so before then, this is 1940, and then let's backtrack a little bit. So this couple, they grew up in Hamburg, Germany. They reconnected in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and they just a fascinating backstory to them. They grew up near the Hagenbeck Zoo in Germany. They themselves had two marmoset monkeys, and they just loved animals, right? But they also were just very adventurous, very part through circumstance and part through their own curiosity. They just were world travelers. And they started publishing. Their first story was actually, the first appearance of Curious George was actually in a book called Cecily G. and the Nine Monkeys. And this was published in 1939, right before the outbreak of the war. And along with other monkeys, there was 9 monkeys. Well, Curious George was one of those 9 monkeys. Cecily G was a giraffe. G stands for giraffe. And in this story, the giraffe was seeking. I'll just read this synopsis of this book, and it tells you a lot of what we're going to be talking about in this class, about the life and times of the rays. And this is really a fascinating account, and what maybe a lot of people don't necessarily know. They read the Curious George books, right? And they're fun books about this curious monkey. And what we're trying to talk about in this class, as we always try to talk about, is what is interesting here. What is that point that I'm connecting with, right? That point of excitement, of interest, that spark that is connecting me to these stories even many years later. So I'm just going to read the synopsis of this. Again, this is the first appearance of Curious George. If you want to know about what makes him so interesting, you have to go to the first appearance. And after this book, the Rays realized that we got to make a whole book just for this one monkey. The story follows the exploits of Cecily Giraffe, or simply Cecily G for short. She is saddened by the loss of her fellow jungle animals and family all of whom had been captured and placed in a zoo. In another section of the jungle lived a female monkey named Mother Pamplemousse. She and her 8 offspring were left homeless by the loss of all the trees in their forest due to woodcutters. It is here the character of Curious George is introduced, who declares that it is time for the family to pack their belongings and move on. Eventually the monkeys can go no further due to a deep ravine. It is baby Ginny, the youngest monkey, who notices the dejected Cecily G on the other side of the ravine. Cecily G notices the monkeys as well, immediately stops crying, and asks the monkeys if they would like to cross. To assist them in crossing, Cecily G leaps forward across the divide, bridging it with her body. Curious George is the first monkey to cross and introduces the family to their rescuer. When each learns of the other's plight, Cecily G invites the monkeys to stay and live with her. So this is fascinating. The actual first Curious George book is a very similar story where Curious George is captured by this mysterious man in a yellow hat, is brought to a foreign land, and is forced to, presumably, to a life of servitude in the zoo. And ultimately, Curious George escapes, and we have happy endings. This is a children's book after all. But it's very perilous. And a lot of the people writing about Curious George say, this is books that wouldn't be written today. Right? You have modern day versions of Curious George where there's some dilemma, some issue that needs to be resolved, and Curious George is able to resolve the issue, and everyone is happy in the end. But there was real danger. There was real fraught with real plight and danger. And going back to the actual story of the Rays and their escape from Nazi Germany, from the invasion of the Nazis to Paris, and they're traveling. They traveled throughout many countries, and before they finally landed in New York, they lost their luggage, they lost everything. But one of the things they had with them were these manuscripts, right? So it's very interesting because here you have the story of Curious George, and it's almost paralleling their actual lives, right? Here you have a monkey that's taken from his homeland, from all his friends, packed in a bag and told he has to go, and to the other side of the world. And very much parallels the lives of Hans and Margaret Rays, right? But more than that, so we had all these options of monkeys, or in general any animal to choose from. So the choice of a monkey that was curious, right, was very curious. Why curiosity? Why was that? Why did they realize, this deserves a series in and of itself? This aspect of curiosity, right? And he was the first, he was the first one to he went to the other side, and he's like, we gotta go explore, we gotta go and venture forth into this brand new world. And that's really what they were able to do. They were able to find a publisher to publish their books, and with almost nothing to their name, right? And so what can we learn from that, right? What is this kind of decades later, many years later, why are we so enamored by this aspect of curiosity? The curiosity is the thing that is so interesting to us. So this, if there's anything that a monkey would mimic, that we would be interested in seeing played out, it's actually the most human of conditions is curiosity. It's the thing that most defines what it is to be a human. And so I'm going to now go into a little bit from this book. It's called The Breath of Life, Torah, Intelligent Design, and Evolution. This is by my Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg. And I highly encourage people to purchase it on Amazon. But I'm just going to go, actually this is the end of the book. Sorry if this is a spoiler. This is actually how the book ends. And the title of this section is The Origin of Civilization, Curiosity. So I'm going to go according to just a couple portions, and we're going to see a little bit about the relationship between curiosity and a children's book. Specifically a children's book, right? We're talking about something that the children are reading, they're loving, they're excited about. So what is this excitement? What is going on over here? So this is from page 164. Despite the centrality of curiosity to the human condition, the only place where the sages use this term is a midrash. In contrast, in modern Hebrew, curiosity is a common word. So this word curiosity in Hebrew is sakranus. Curiosity is a desire to learn more. It can either be a positive or a negative trait. Although it is a catalyst that stimulates progress, it has its disadvantages. Right? So Curious George is always getting into trouble, right? He's curious, but that's the common way that you view curiosity is, well, it's someone who's curious, but they're getting into a lot of trouble. And that's exactly how we explain it. Is that someone that is looking into things, is searching for things, but it also leads to some trouble. So how do we make sure that our curiosity, our inquisitiveness, is done in a proper way? So there we can look at the numerical value of the word itself. The numerical value of curiosity is sakranus, is 816, which is the value of shiflus, of lowliness. And it's equal to 8 times faith. It indicates that ultimately both depend on absolute faith in God. So if our curiosity is driven by humility and faith in God, then true, we're going to get into some trouble, but we're going to God is going to take us past that, right? We're going to proceed in the right places, and maybe we're going to end up in the wrong places sometimes. But ultimately, the story is going to end in a positive way. So here, just for another thing from this section, the goal of all knowledge is to realize that we know nothing. Right? This simple faith, it's very interesting here. We have this dynamic between curiosity and simple faith. On the one hand, we want to figure things out. On the other hand, we know that the more I know, the less I really know. Right? It's that awareness that it's good to be inquisitive, but there's a certain simplicity to it. So this very much relates to a children's book. Right? We can start to understand why children love this. Because it speaks to them, right? This is exactly how children are. They get into things, right? They get into trouble. In the end, we're hoping that all works out in the end, right? But it's that simplicity, and it's also that search, a simple search for knowledge, for discovery, that relates to that childhood innocence in all of us. In mankind, the sense of sight is limited, and he is unable to view everything at once. Curiosity is the essence of sin of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Right? There's two sides. Right? You have some crisis, but then you have this resolution. Right? Good and evil. You have these two sides to curiosity. The correct use of our innate intellectual curiosity is to learn as much as we can about God and to look for His presence in everything that transpires. As in the verse, in all your ways, know Him. Right? So every story is like an example of providence, of divine providence at play. Right? Of tumbling into some type of a situation, and ultimately everything works out. So this is teaching kids. What's the take-home message for kids? Is that everything is going to work out, even if you're tumbled and you're taken to another part of the world, right? To a zoo, or in the Ray's case, to New York City. Wow. Can you imagine? Leaving the boat without, and you have these manuscripts in hand, and the manuscripts themselves talk about what's happening in their lives, right? It's like it's as if they're writing their own experience into this account. It's something so central to the human condition, and something that for generations kids are going to be able to relate to. So what's the Kabbalah of Curious George? It's the secret of the human condition, and that secret is curiosity, which is faith-based, humble inquisitiveness. Thank you so much. And I just would like to end that this topic was initiated by my friend of over 15 years, my study partner. If you would like to ask for a topic, we're going to start with $36 for like a 4 or 5 minute video on any topic under the sun. So we're going to try that out and take it from there. Thank you so much.